Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Feedback Friday. I'm your host, Jacob. It is Art Edition today. Yet again, we're back. So, Dave is under the weather today, so he asked me to fill in last minute. So, I'm here again. Hello. Welcome. Uh, we're going to jump right in. It's going to be a short one today. Um, I have some things I need to get done today, and they are not stuff that I can stream. So I'll have to kind of do what I can for the stream, and then lunch, I'm going to log off and then do what I need to get done. But yeah, so I'm just going to jump right over to the art, and we're actually picking up where we left off last week, which isn't what we normally get to do. So that's actually kind of cool. Um, so it's been a week since I really kind of like even was looking at this, so got a little bit of a break from it, which is helpful. But it's pretty far along. We did pretty good, all considered. This was only handful of hours worth of work, so it came together pretty effectively. But I see there's, plenty of details that we can push further, maybe improve compositionally, things like that. Um, so I think we're going to work on that. That said, there is this. It's pretty close to done, and I think we could finish that up. But I do also have another trap skin that I've been working on, and that one I do need to have finished for today. It's due today. This one's not due today, so I could still kind of come back to this. I'm a little tempted. Now it would be a bit of a spoiler, but I'm a little tempted to pop over to the other one and see if we want to finish that one up. What do you think? Should we just continue this one, or should we pull up a different looking trap skin that's also pretty much done? I'm just, polishing it up, final details. What do you think? Uh, Here's an interesting question. Will we ever get to see trap skin for the Jacked Rabbit? Um, Finish the one I need. Yeah, I think so. I kind of want to. That's a good question. We were actually talking about that on the team, because that is a trap that returns. It's not a limited edition event trap. Um, and it's kind of like a potential. There's a few traps that could fit that realm, but we've only ever done event trap skins like for event traps in a few occasions. There was like the dance bot that came with a set. Obviously, like the golem generator is a special case as well. Um, but the main one that we do is the boiling cauldron. But that one's kind of like you have to use that trap during the event pretty much because of the special effect. So because the jacked robot is like not the most kind of like practical trap for the player base, like with Halloween, the boiling cauldron is like the one you use at that location. Catch rate is not an issue, right? Uh, However, yeah, like uh, the spring egg hunt one, I I don't think it's like the most powerful trap for a lot of people. Some certainly would use it, but because it's a spring egg hunt, it's kind of like go all over and hunt around to get different eggs. So like it could be valid to do it for that. But if we did, it would be much more on the kind of like this is for collection purposes, and it'd be something you could earn probably relatively easily. So it's kind of like the value add is an interesting kind of question. Like it takes an artist, a certain amount of resources to create that. So do we feel like the benefit to the player base is going to be kind of one that is worth that effort, or should the effort go somewhere else? Because like I'm always down for more kind of customizability and trap skins, but that trap is just like I just wonder if it would get enough play to make it worth doing a trap skin for. So it's a good question. I think it could be a valid, trap to do, but that's just where we're at on that. So it's an unknown, but it's something we literally were talking about recently. Yeah. All right. So yeah, let's check out the new one I need to finish today. Um, this year's Cauldron skin is the best skin ever forever. All right. So here we have a little kind of sneak peek of a upcoming trap skin that I've been working on. Um, so it's pretty close to done. It's actually at its kind of polishing details stage, and I could probably just submit this and be pretty happy with it. But that said, it does have a lot of kind of like muddy detail that I think could be better resolved. Um, so again, we're not going to be streaming very long today. Hence why it's kind of like, okay, maybe this is a fine subject matter because, admittedly, working on the Howl's Moving Stinger trap, it would be kind of like finessing details we've already watched me paint towards, so it's not going to be the most interesting. This at least is brand new for everyone. So, it's kind of, even though I'm kind of like fussing with the little details, it's at least kind of new and interesting to see. Yeah. Not the Excalibur skin, unfortunately. Great background, though. Thank you. Um, so this one's gone through a lot of kind of work in terms of kind of like uh, the rendering and trying to balance things. So if I look at the grayscale, you can kind of see that I'm trying to kind of like group things, but it's been a little bit of a battle. And I'll show you kind of like some of the overlay work that I've done. So that's just mist stuff. But because it's more of a scene, it's a little bit of a different painting technique than I tend to use. So when I'm working on a character, for example, um, I'm kind of building up the character out of lots and lots of different kind of like rendered layers, like the body posture, the outfit on top in multiple layers, um, different layers to kind of like build up each thing, and each one of those is kind of like um, opaque, and the actual like painting is kind of restricted to the layer it's in, right? So I can't paint outside of the arm, for example. That's just kind of how I like to render. But a scene, it's kind of like just so much all over top of itself that eventually I kind of get to a point where instead of working on individual layers and trying to like finesse like all the rock, on an individual layer and then work on a rock right beside it and jump over to a different layer, and it's a lot of that. I tend to end up getting to a point where I'm just kind of like painting over top of everything, and it's a fast, effective way to kind of like get a scene to work, and it helps harmonize things. But it also ends up getting more muddy where like the edges of things get a little less kind of clean, right? Like I'm kind of sloppily overpainting. The brush strokes are kind of like, overlapping, and it gets a little bit muddy because of that. And colors kind of can end up kind of blending in ways that can make it feel that way too. But here, I'll just show you some of the kind of overpaint things that end up happening. So this whole folder here, there's quite a few layers in it, and these are all kind of like modifications of just painting directly over top of all those individual layers. So it's kind of hard to, you know, get too specific with details after that. So rainbows, kind of like a nice little kind of color overlay. The fog itself, I just need to paint that above things. So this is kind of like a lighting pass to kind of get more direct sunlight. And I think one of the things is I have a lot of like, it's breaking up a lot in shadows, but I'm kind of like, maybe I want to group it even more. So for example, if I kind of take that shadow out, it's a little more kind of cohesive, more one object, and maybe I'll like impart more shadow there and kind of like make these a little more distinct. And that's kind of like one of the things that you can do to kind of balance things a bit better is just kind of like go into the kind of overall value structure and try and kind of like push and pull things into groups so that they read as like a collection of values. So even though we lose some of the shadow definition here, I think overall it can kind of read better. But I'm going to undo that and bring it back to where it was to kind of see how it looked before. There's more definition. It reads like, oh, okay, I see what's going on with these craggly rocks. But at the same time, it's kind of like more distracting. So I think I'm going to bring it back to where I had it a moment ago and then try and just like make the details work with this value grouping better. So I think I'll just kind of like blend that a bit more. But I think I do like this sunlight kind of falling onto this area of rocks, right? Yeah, so I mean, I think it should be relatively clear what this trap is, right? Um, but in case it wasn't obvious enough, that's who we're working on. So, actually, I think maybe seeing these lower arms here, I'm reminded that maybe I did want that definition for that purpose, right? Something like that could work. Have these rocks outcropped just a bit and casting a shadow on these below it, maybe. But yeah, this is kind of like one of the things that I like about a scene is I can kind of overpaint on top of everything and like get away with it better than when I do that on a character piece. Just because I don't know, it feels less challenging to just like, I'll just throw a new layer on top of that and paint over that. It's kind of more like canvas painting where you just kind of build it up. And you can do that with characters as well, but I've found that because I like to get really specific with details and kind of want all the little elements to really read, and having them kind of like on controlled layers makes that a lot easier to manage. It's a little less frustrating to kind of overpaint that style on characters, but for scenes, it's a little different. So, and pretty much, I end up doing this a lot on my stream where I do kind of try to overpaint on top of a character where it's like, oh, if I just kind of like put a brightness layer or a kind of like, well, in Clip Studio it's called brightness, but I put like a brightness layer on top of kind of the whole character and I adjust the shadows and values and it looks good, but then to like make tweaks to the layers below it, I have to like work under that layer and then I just have to merge everything in ways, and it's a lot of extra kind of effort. But that doesn't tend to happen in scenes, and this is a scene to me, so it's fine. Okay. Yeah, I think I actually do prefer that, having that extra arch. Yeah, always check behind the waterfalls. Exactly. I don't think I've ever played a video game that had a waterfall that I didn't try my best to get behind the waterfall, because if it's a well-designed game, it's gonna have a secret in there. And I've definitely played games where I was able to get behind the waterfall and sorely disappointed when there was nothing in there. It's like if a game has a dog, I should be able to pet the dog. These are important kind of, you know, universal things in games, I feel. Waterfalls should have secrets behind them. Dogs should be petable. All right. So that's one of the modification layers. Let's actually like strip these back and see just how much this has changed from those kind of overpainting, just because it's kind of interesting. So this was our sunlight pass, and honestly, like I'm tempted to push it. So that's it at like 100. It's maybe a bit too much. Maybe it was good where it was. All right, so I'll turn that off, and this was kind of my saturation, um, as well as kind of color. If I rip those off, it gets a lot more kind of crazy looking. I'll even take the rainbows off. Gets a lot more crazy looking. That's because I did this brightness painting over top, and this is what was really changing a lot. So this was kind of where I got it to before I started kind of fixing the values, right? I painted it up like this on all different layers, and I was like, yeah, it's working. But it's just kind of really hard to kind of like take in. It's noisy is kind of what I would call it. So if I look at the grayscale, I'm kind of like seeing a lot of things grabbing my attention, right? There's just so much high contrast. Lots of brights and darks kind of like right beside each other, and there isn't kind of like the greatest sense of like, here's where I should be looking. So the archway with the mist is kind of a little bit of a rest area. That's nice. And this kind of back wall here with this kind of lit shelf, that's a little bit more defined and okay. But the whole waterfall and the left side and like down here at the shore and stuff, like it just feels unresolved. So doing that, I kind of calmed things down. Uh, so this was bringing in just the brightness pass. That helped kind of, like make it less chaotic feeling. It was just really noisy feeling, right? So again, with the color, right? So the colors are obviously a bit crazy. So I had to bring down the saturation, and then I also adjusted the actual colors a little bit, and then brought that idea of the cast sun back a little stronger. So hopefully that kind of harmonized it all a bit better. So this is all of those turned back on. So that's where I got to before I started doing those adjustments, and here it is after adjustments, which I think that was a pretty big change. It feels more fuzzy and kind of, soft, but I think it needed that. So let's see. These are all kind of like waterfall effects. And this was just some of the mist happening. Yeah, all right. So let's see. I think I'm relatively happy with kind of where some of this is at. Actually, I'm going to keep this off. Or do I want it on? No, I think I want it on. I think I might get rid of... I think I prefer it not have this kind of shaded strip in the water there. So something that is an interesting thing that I learned from studying older art. Um, Singer Sargent was a classic painter. He's one of the greats. And in school, I was kind of taught to like study uh, old master paintings. And one of the things that I learned from studying that artist is about kind of lost and found edges, and this is something that I'm still kind of working and developing. It's less something you can put into just kind of like a standalone character illustration in like a white void, like a lot of MouseHunt character art is, right? But in a painting that has like a full scene and has an atmosphere and like lighting conditions and a background, it's something that you can use depending on kind of what you're doing. But obviously, it's a principle to kind of like always have in your pocket. You can use it wherever. Um, but what that idea is about kind of creating areas of focus and contrast and like purposefully losing contrast to help kind of direct the viewer. So the concept of like lost and found edges is where you want the viewer to like pay attention. You use found edges, and those are kind of like there's a hard kind of distinction between your kind of wrong layer between things. So like a cheek in front of kind of like a background, it has like a nice strong line separating it, and there's good contrast there. And you found the edge, but then like that same cheek maybe is kind of like uh, in shadow now, and the hair is here, and you kind of like allow that defined cheekbone structure or jawline or whatever to kind of like almost like blend into shadow, and you like lose that edge. And stuff like that is kind of like a cool way to kind of like let the viewer kind of like not pay as much attention to that spot. So something that I can do maybe is like back in this area, I don't really want you to pay a lot of attention to kind of like the rock details. I want you to pay attention to this structure here. This is kind of the focal point. So first of all, I think I'm going to increase the contrast of parts of it to kind of say, hey, first of all, this is interesting. You want to like notice it because it has higher contrast than other parts, but then make sure there's like found edges to look at. Now, the subject matter that I chose was like a splashing waterfall on rocks that is kind of like hitting and misting off of it. So that's kind of dangerous because it's asking for fuzzy, like, you know, edges that are lost because it's just hazy and like things are kind of covered in mist, right? So what I want to do is I want to kind of like clarify some edges to make sure there's these found edges to kind of like catch with my viewer. So I think I'm going to pick out a couple of areas that don't feel very distinct, feels a little bit kind of like it's getting lost, and just kind of bring in that kind of clean, crisp line work to just kind of allow you to notice it. And so I think I'm going to put it up on top of the sunlit layer. And we'll just do a little bit of painting on top of things. Because again, at this point, I'm canvas painting. I'm just kind of painting over top of all these built up layers, and that's just how it is. So if I kind of intentionally create these cleaner edges. I'm going to help make it a little bit easier to kind of look at this spot and hopefully make it easier to kind of like read what I'm looking at. So again, this is a principle of kind of like the more legible something is, the nicer it looks. I've kind of talked about this before, but the idea that if something's kind of hard to even like understand what I'm looking at, inherently we don't like it as much. It doesn't feel as pleasing to look at. But if something even just at a glance is like super easy for my brain to just interpret and understand what I'm looking at, that feels more pleasing to literally anyone. Is just kind of like we're pattern recognizing machines. So being able to easily pick up a pattern and like appreciate the concept of what I'm seeing, we tend to gravitate towards enjoying that. So the idea of this thing feeling a bit muddy makes me want to make sure that I kind of clarify things a bit better. Now, is it going to be easy to understand what you're looking at here? I don't know. Because it's kind of a weird thing, you know, this archway I have kind of embedded in a waterfall. Like, you might have to take a second look to kind of be like, what am I looking at? This is unfamiliar. But I do want it to feel like ruins or something that I've kind of activated. So hopefully that does kind of read. Okay. So we can really kind of bring up a lot of contrast here with these kind of carvings in the archway if we want. Again, the mist, it's kind of something I don't want to fight it that much. So where I can, I'll add that clarity. But I don't need to go too crazy with it. I want to make sure these feel like they are getting splashed upon, right? So, let's see. I think for this side of the rock, I do want it to kind of have some light casting off the side, but it's not going to be like our sunlight. It's going to be kind of a cooler bounce light. But then the area directly underneath of it can be deeper shadows to help pump up our contrast here, right? To make that read even stronger, to give us that found edge. Although in shadow, it's totally usually where you want your lost edges to be. But because this is kind of like an important shape, I kind of want that to feel found. Hopefully any of this is making sense, but so a good way to kind of like lose an edge is to blend it, right? So I want that lost edge on the bottom side of this arch, let's say, but I don't want it kind of like on the rock, so I can just actually blend that into the rock, but then leave it nice and crisp on this side. And so we have a found edge and a lost edge here. And having those together can kind of like make things read nicely. Although I kind of want that whole corner to feel a bit more lost, so I think I will lose a little bit of that contrast. I don't need the entirety of the subject to be like fully, easy to kind of see all the perfect edges. I think if it's in the shadow, I like it getting a bit lost. So you're still kind of like, what am I looking at? Yeah. Yeah, so basically the design of this skin is for us to feel like the trap is crafted from the wall, the bottom of the waterfall. Yeah, that's why we're not seeing much of the width of the trap. Yeah, pretty much. Like the idea is, yeah, it's kind of like somehow you found this entire structure that you could set your base into, and the whole thing activates and becomes a trap. Um, and yeah, like there's this kind of thin curtain of waterfall kind of coming down on top of it. I kind of wanted the idea of it to be like, this is, you know, sticking at the most. These are sticking out a little bit less, and these are even less. So it's kind of has this like cascading shelf effect. I don't know if it works, if it's super clear or not, but that was kind of the idea. Otherwise, the whole thing would just be kind of like maybe covered with water splashing over the whole thing. If it kind of like juts out as it goes, maybe it kind of makes sense, but I don't know, it's kind of weird. So I don't know if it looks right or not. Also, I'm not super happy with the water here. Um, feel like the shore could be tuned up a bit. But yeah. Okay, so getting a little more definition on things. It might be pushing it too far, but we can always pull it back. It's better to kind of go too far and pull back than not go far enough, you know? In my opinion. Yeah, I don't... Do I have the screen record going? Time lapse? Nope. I did not. Darn, this whole trap does not have the time lapse recording. This would be a cool one to rewatch too. Sorry about that. I guess I never started the time lapse on this one. My bad. Yeah, the jewels got washed away. I feel like they got stolen, you know? Someone did find these ruins and they plucked them. That's kind of my idea behind it. I mean, maybe these should feel more like deep sockets that are empty to convey that idea. I think that actually looks nicer with a little more contrast there, actually. Okay. So if I turn that stuff off and on, we can kind of see what difference that makes, right? So I think for these kind of ley line things, I'm going to pull them back just a little bit. I don't think the contrast would be quite that deep, like the cast shadow and stuff. I think they'd be a bit lighter because there would be enough sunlight kind of bouncing between them that the gaps would be a bit lit. So I think more so what I can do is actually kind of like highlight that edge that would have the bounce light. See if that creates a bit of the definition. Mhm. Instead of washed away, how about draw a muddy jewel that is yet to reveal itself due to the washing of the waterfall? Mm. A rainbow jewel. Oh, maybe. Maybe. Could be an idea. I'm just like, I'm trying to do less like details. I'm trying to kind of like focus it. But maybe we do that. I think I'm gonna refine what I can, and then if we have any extra time, I'll see about tossing in a hidden jewel. I mean, maybe it would be down inside the water or something like that. But yeah, just because I'm kind of trying to get to a certain finished state, because I have other things I have to get done today, unfortunately. Otherwise, yeah, I'd be like, all right, yeah, let's kind of mess around with every idea we can throw at this because it's fun. Okay. So here, let's see, maybe this would be an example of where I can kind of do a lost and found edge. So this edge here is like a found edge, right? Like there's nice crisp definition here, right? We have light casting onto it in front of kind of like an unlit backdrop, right? So good contrast. Um, but then the underside of it, we don't have that same kind of light to feed us information to our eyeballs, right? Because without photons bouncing into our eyes, we can't see things, right? So without as much light, we're not going to get back as much information to process. So that's kind of where I come from with this is like, is there a lot of light on this part? If not, maybe we let that kind of edge get a bit more lost. So the underside of this, because it's more in shadow, I'm less worried about it having like a crisp kind of defined, really clean looking edge. Especially when it's like a really bright area close to it, it kind of like makes it feel a little more um, overblown when it comes to kind of like light hitting it. Now, because we have this set below this step and it's quite bright and it's going to reflect a lot of that light, it's going to cast off a lot of that light. What I'll do in this case here is actually have bounce light happening. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that material and the color that the material is bouncing off, so the light that's not being absorbed and it's kind of casting off that surface, it's going to kind of shine that around the area. It's going to bounce its own light onto the things around it. And because it's bouncing onto itself, it's kind of, the same color. So what it's going to do is it's going to actually like lose a lot of that energy, right? Bounce light's not as strong as direct light. It's going to lose a lot of that energy and it's going to get more saturated. So we're going to have this light bounce up onto itself and it's going to get like become a more saturated color. Same kind of idea with this under part here. And the closer it is to the area that's bouncing the light, the more kind of intense. It has very strong fall off when you get this kind of effect, right? But we'll give it enough that it's kind of clear that there's some kind of bounce light happening. Right, so that feels interesting. It is maybe a bit strong, but believable, right? But like back in here, maybe there's not really much bounce light. Maybe in this area we're going to get a bit more of it. Maybe. Because there's light hitting the far side of this wall and kind of scattering around in there. But in general, I think this is an area where we're going to intentionally have more lost edges. Things feel less easy to kind of see the definition between them. It's a bit fuzzy looking back there. If I'm like trying to focus, there's nothing that is like crisp. And even not even like changing the value amount, just kind of blurring the definition of those edges, we kind of help set it back and become less important to look at. Like if I give this a hard edge, but it's the same color, suddenly it's like, okay, I want to look at that. But if I soften it, it's like, yeah, not as important. Now I don't like that kind of like line of contrast right on the edge so much. It's maybe a little bit distracting. So I think I'll bring this over a bit. Kind of create more of an angled shape that feels that's not how I want to blur that. That feels a little bit more like there's a structure that's kind of sloped. Maybe I don't like that. It's a little too distracting. I think it was fine how it was. All right. So much detail on this trap skin for it only becoming a background for Howl's Moving Castle trap skin. Would not be something. Do all this work just to use it as a background for something else. All right, so if we really want something to feel like there's strong sunlight on it, the thing we can do is do a bit of like bloom, where I take kind of like that light and I actually just kind of like blur it like that in and kind of like let it haze over the shaded kind of background area. And this makes it look like it's overexposed, which is kind of a nice effect. It can really make it feel like there's some very strong sunlight, which I think in this scene is appropriate. So a little bit of that kind of bloom happening is kind of nice. Got a lot of mushy, muddy definition down here. It's kind of like, what's going on? I can't really tell what I'm supposed to look at, so I might tune that up a bit. Again, like, I want a bunch of it to just be like that, you know, it's just kind of like muddy-ish because it's not important to look at. But some parts of it's like, I do want you to pay attention to the details here, and it's still muddy, so those are the areas I want to clean up. So a lot of the grass tufts are just kind of like the initial sketch. Crop of the pictures. Yeah, too much contrast on the edge gives me a feel like the crop of the picture is just how big the trap is. Right, so like this edge here. Um, which, like I want it to feel like there's a cavern kind of like cliff face there that's just kind of out of view. But like that might be a fair assessment is like if this is also in shade, then it kind of feels like we are in a chasm. So that's not terrible. Yeah, like I was just imagining like over here is kind of like a wall and like there's just kind of like a curved area here and stuff like that, but yeah. Yeah, trying to get that chasm just right is an interesting challenge. Cuz like why is the sunlight hitting here and not other parts, right? Like originally a lot more of this was lit up, but I kind of want there to feel like there's this overhang kind of blocking the light in this kind of big kind of chops. And that's kind of one of the things that I'm back and forth a lot on this piece with is like what direction is this light actually coming from, Jacob? Like what's going on? The definition of kind of the sunlight and the angles and stuff like that have been a little bit trickier. Like I have a fairly good concept of what angle this sunlight's at, but like making it read that way has been a little bit trickier than I might prefer. Hmm. Either this trap is super huge or the hell's moving stinger is quite tiny. Wonder what it is. Okay, so something that I think will be nice is actually like go in and do some details, some like quite direct and specific details on things, just so that when your eye is picking out areas to look at, you're seeing kind of like texture and that kind of that like not just because there's a lot of texture in this overall, but more so like seeing that's a pebble, that's some grass tufts, that's the mist spraying off, that kind of idea. But I think I want to get the grass tufts because those really are some of the kind of least well defined parts of this trap skin. They just don't feel at all resolved compared to at least the rest of it. And it doesn't take much. Get a few kind of more interesting shapes, especially with it kind of like poking off the edge of the cliff. It like feels a little more kind of like, ooh, what's that detail? Um, get some kind of fern thing happening. Us hunters have to carry those traps. They can't be too big. We just don't think about these things. Most video games don't think about these things. You know, like how many, you know, dozens of swords and suits of armor is your hero kind of like walking around and like leaping over chasms with, right? Uh, every video game is filled with just absolute monsters of people just hulking out, obliterating entire legions of baddies. There are some that kind of like have rules around like, oh, carry weight and all kinds of stuff. But even then, they sometimes have that character punch a volcano or punch a like boulder into a volcano. Um, so, what can you do? All right. Here you go, Dallas. Get all the droids to carry the traps for you. I mean, that's how I do it too. Get the monster bot going. Got some good carry weight potential. Okay, so one of the ideas I had around these rocks specifically was like um, having them feel wet, right? And things that have kind of like a layer of moisture on them, like actually their surface is kind of coated, they absorb a lot more light. The light refracts very differently. So even though it's in direct sunlight, it's still going to be quite a bit darker. So one thing I could do is try to kind of return that concept to some of these surfaces and like, what layer am I on? Okay, above that layer at least. It's like the idea of having kind of this cascading flowing water here. And we can have gaps where it selectively kind of travels and doesn't coat the rocks, right? And then to kind of help that like edge where it's rolled over to kind of like reflect where the light source is would have kind of this strong specularity to it, right? So that'll feel more wet, right? Now it's going to be a pretty high contrast thing, so got to be a little bit careful how it's done, right? This currently is like way too distracting, right? It's maybe not the most resolved looking regardless, so it needs to be tuned up, but it's kind of tricky to kind of make sure it's done well. And it isn't kind of too attention grabbing for what I'm trying to communicate, right? Like maybe I want it to feel a little more the rock color. Maybe I can lighten it up a bit. Right, because it's still a thin stream on it. So maybe that's enough with streaks. Of kind of like light and dark in it, because it would kind of like carry sediment, and it might kind of catch different reflections. The trap looks like a chess tower with Unicron transformer horns. Nice. This is probably good, right? That sounds like a compliment. Okay. Uh, yeah, so let's see. Like I added more definition, but at what cost? Actually, okay, so thinking about the design of it, I actually don't want it overlapping this. I just want it to be kind of like behind that. So what I'll do is I'll use a mask to kind of erase away and bring it back in some spots, right? Okay. Yeah, all right. I just need it to be more guided. What is flowing over where? I think that's a bit better, actually. Oh, because that was masked off. Durr. Alright, I see what's going on. It's like, why can't I paint here? What is happening? After just putting a mask on that layer. Indeed, what secrets lie within? One does wonder. Okay, we are at noon o'clock. We're gonna go for one more hour. So basically, it's just gonna be me kind of rendering in details, right? Just hanging out while doing that. I suppose I could have started my time-lapse recording when I realized, but it is what it is. I think it's fine. It was an impromptu stream anyways, right? Okay, so let's grab that. I also like the idea of like some moss on the sides. Like this rock right here is kind of an example of that happening, where I could use maybe like what would be a good brush for this, I wonder. Maybe I have a nebula brush. That one's kind of interesting. Does not seem very strong. Okay, maybe not that brush. Leather? Maybe. Heck, even triangles might be best. Granite. Dappled light could work if I kind of build it up, but the scaling of that brush is maybe a bit difficult. Crack is kind of okay. So right now I'm just playing around with old brushes. Okay. I think triangles might be a good way to build up our kind of moss and lichen and stuff. So let's go smaller. Let's do particle size. That's way too tiny. That seems okay. All right. Feels like fungus instead of moss. Maybe. All right. But yeah, it's just kind of like little moments of specific detail. It's kind of the thing I want to do. Like, where is the player gonna look, and what details are important to kind of like enhance and clarify, right? What's just simply distracting, and what's like adding. think having these kind of splashes help to kind of tell you, oh, you're looking at water spray, right? This waterfall is actively kind of splashing down a curtain of water, and it's hitting surfaces and smashing into it and spraying off. Water do be very good at refracting light and kind of catching the light source. So having little blips of bright kind of reflection are pretty valid for it. Especially with these wet surfaces, they're going to have some kind of rolled edge, and somewhere along that edge it's going to catch that angle and reflect the sun. I mean, that's why essentially like the mist at the bottom of a waterfall is like white. Is it's got all that surface area, little kind of particles and particulate of kind of water just droplets bouncing that light all over the place. And just a collection of them, that's why clouds are white. They're just bouncing all that light so much so that it looks white. And then it gets thick enough that it gets dark. And it stops, like it starts blocking all that light because it gets so dense, right? That's why you get rain. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking about when I'm kind of like trying to make this interacting with a water curtain, right? It's like, well, what is that material actually going to be doing? How does it act with light? And I mean, there's a lot of like really specific things I could go into and try and illustrate, but then I'd be spending a whole week on this. So probably not the right angle, but it is fun to try and kind of go there with things when you can. Yeah, here I am kind of stacking so many layers of kind of like built up rendering. I'm kind of like, what layer is going on top of what layer? And this is where it starts to get to a point where it's like, okay, I'm just going to flatten all those and start another one. Start fresh. I'm happy enough with that. Great. I'm going to merge them all and then go from there. It's kind of freeing because it's very antithesis to kind of how I tend to render. And it can be kind of fun, but it's also a little bit hairy depending on how you like to work. Where you might want to grab, that layer specifically that is preserved and work off that. But oops, now it's all muddled behind other layers below it. So Okay, right here we have some crazy contrast, right? It's too much, in fact. I'm kind of like constantly looking back, like, what is this detail? Um, and that's because we have like a lot of contrast, like uh, light and dark, right? There's a lot of dark, a lot of light, and it's kind of focused and sharply kind of lined up with each other so that they kind of like have increased contrast. Um, and it's suggesting that there's like something important to look at, but it really isn't. So here's where I'm going to intentionally like have lost edges, right? So this used to have well-defined edges, and now I'm going to purposefully kind of make those less clean and clear. I'm going to just kind of muddle them up a bit. We can kind of keep like a found edge if we want, but for the most part, I'm going to try to lose them. Especially since there's like more interesting details in front and to the side of it. I'd prefer those be what the viewer is focused on. Right, so we'll create like a nice found edge here. In fact, even kind of maybe a little more interesting shape. Right, have like a little detail here where there's kind of like some rock, kind of like a pitted kind of the light raking over that kind of shape. So that's a little more interesting to look at, right? And overall, I think the definition of it can just kind of get a little bit more lost. But maybe we would have a bit of this bounce light back here. So we'll get like a little bit of that color, a bit more saturated, kind of influencing these shadows. Right, so now it feels a little bit less kind of drawing my eye. There is something about the shape though. So there's still a pretty hard edge here. I want to lose that a bit more. But I think there's something about the way these lines all line up that is also demanding me look at it. So I'm going to break that concept there, that silhouette. That shape was just asking to be important because of like how all these surfaces seem to line up. It just didn't quite work. So that helps a bit. Yeah, intentionally and modifying it. Okay, I think that is a little better now. Less distracting. Okay, let's take a look at that. Flip it on its head. It's always good to kind of like look at things in new ways, to just kind of be like, whoa, all right, how did I miss that detail? What does it look like when it's defying gravity? Does it kind of hold together in the right ways? Is it cohesive? Does it feel like it's defying gravity? If it feels like it's defying gravity, there's probably a good sense of weight and structure to it. The trap is a spider. What about making it look like the edge of the stairs for mice to travel down to the entrance of this trap? That's kind of interesting. Like a carved staircase in the wall. I feel like that would be cool if I had that concept from the beginning. I mean, maybe this element here could be that feeling, but I want to make sure it does feel like the kind of this form first off. But yeah, if it was stairs, I feel like that could make sense. Mice travel on rainbows. Yeah, we've seen it. It's true. Fact, actually. They surf them. If you've caught them, you'd know. I guess St. Patrick's Day is coming up, huh? Yeah, not sure everyone has seen it. That's very likely the case, yes. I think that I don't even know if Michelle has gotten her leprechaun yet, but she's been around since the dawn of MouseHunt, and certainly has had some difficulty encountering the leppy, or catching rather. Encountering is a thing that many have done, but less so the catching. I mean, maybe that's why it's glowing gold in the entrance, right? Could be. Who knows? I certainly don't. I just draw the things, and then the developers get to decide what it all means. So maybe that's what they'll write about it. It's kind of one of the neat things about how we work is like I can have the freedom to paint anything I think would be fun and not have to worry about it being logical, because that job is for someone else. And rarely are things logical in MouseHunt anyways, so I think it just fits the whimsical nature. I think this one would be an interesting one to write a description for. It's a little more kind of cohesive in terms of kind of like, oh, there's some kind of ruins. What could that mean? As opposed to just some kind of weird floating ominous structure that is kind of nonsense. What do you do with that? Okay, so in here, I'm happy to have a lot more kind of lost edges, right? It's kind of, I don't know what's going on back in there. It's deep in shadow. Ooh. Yeah, one catch and 9 misses. That's good. She did get hers. Yeah, I think she got it like only recently though, like the past couple of years. Uh, I like that ancient temple ruin with mouse sculptures on the sides. Oh, okay. If I had more time for this trap skin, then I'd totally consider like adding in the sculptures on the sides because that's pretty cool. Um, but this one is like I have to wrap it up in the next like 35 minutes, um, and that's that. It's gonna get submitted. Uh, oh my goodness, it is a blizzard outside. It was like t-shirt and shorts weather like a few days ago. I'm so sad. Oh, good, great. Oh, it's nasty out. All right. I think this one's kind of standing out in a weird way. But yeah, I feel like this is definitely a piece that I could quite easily dedicate another full week to and still be like, little detail here, little sprig of moss there, paint that lichen, make it all nice. Um, and it would be great, but yeah, it's just kind of like diminishing returns at a certain point where my resources would be more effective elsewhere. There's a lot of stuff to get done, so can't bring pretty much anything to at the perfect state naturally. And I mean, this is kind of how I feel about art in general. Is like you can always push something further and always make it better. There is no kind of like it is 100% guaranteed done. There is nothing more that could ever be done to it to finish it or make it better. Right? I always feel like there's like no, it could be better. So you just kind of have to like learn how to be content and move on. There's don't let perfect get in the way of good enough rule, right? Um, Especially when you're working on a project and it has like deadlines that need to be met, right? We gotta create new content and commit with new areas, and there's a lot that goes into those, so we need a lot of art. So if we didn't need a ton of art, then yeah, maybe I'd be able to spend even more time on each piece and really give you something to kind of knock your socks off. But we do not have that luxury. So I just try to be effective with my time. Efficient maybe is a strong word. I am not necessarily efficient with my time, but I think I can manage to be effective at it. So yeah, you kind of gotta pick your battles, right? And depending on where we're at with the roadmap, we can kind of have a little more leeway in those battles we pick, which is nice. But yeah, so by painting it this way, I'm kind of almost indicating a shale-like stone, um, where it's kind of strata, like built up layer by layer, and when it kind of breaks, it kind of crumbles away in sheets. Um, It's gonna have more cast shadow on it, I think. Get a little bit of this bounce light in here. Yeah, it's little details that can tell a lot. Those are fun. I enjoy that kind of stuff. Now, is that a good place to have tucked that detail? No, probably a terrible place. It's off the canvas. On mobile, your gold shield indicator is going to cover that completely. It would be better to do it on these rocks up here. So I should do that. Ooh, runes slash initials. We could totally do runes and initials in this. You're right. Yeah, like there would definitely be um, a lot of weathering, a lot of erosion, right? I mean, that's what happens to rock is water wears it down. That's why you have smooth pebbles on the beaches, right? That's why you have rivers. It's just erosion. So, kind of the rocks at the bottom of a waterfall, unless, it's a younger waterfall and those rocks were ripped out of the wall more recently and thrown down to the bottom, they're going to be pretty beaten, smoothed. Um, but like this is a fresher kind of, upset of this area. Like the carvings may be old and worn, but like some of this is new, some of it's worn, all kinds of stuff going on, right? Something that could be kind of fun is if actually we half submerge the base. I kind of only recently thought of doing this, and that could be really cool. Instead of it being like floating on top, like what if? Let's just try that. See if I can pull it off real quick. So I'm going to lock those layers. I'm going to find the water. I'm going to see if I can make this work. So this is our kind of like mask here. I'm going to have to do folder above it. And this might be tricky. Let's start. Like that. Okay. And then I'm going to drop that down. Fair amount. Now, depending on what the base is that you use, it might not work great. So we'll see how this effect looks in the end. But it's fun. It's a fun potential. Okay. I think maybe I will have this on top just so that I can overpaint it more easily. I will put that inside. I will name this one water. Maybe river would be better. Stream. Surfboard base when actually that would be so valid. What with like all of the trap skins we've done, that would actually be amazing because there are a number that would actually like work. Now, making it look like a surfboard is hard because we are locked into this shape. We can't really do anything that would be surfboard shaped, but like we could make it look like appropriate materials, I guess. Okay, so it's been a while since I've like done a lot of water painting. I actually think it's a really cool challenge and very interesting, but it is a challenge. All right, so let's do occlusion because there's just so much with light um, that you need to understand and learn. And water is one of those things that interacts with light in real interesting and deep ways. And I took a pretty interesting advanced light class that kind of like dove deeper into these subject matters to really kind of like learn more about the physics of what's going on and kind of like think about it that way, but for artists, right? So we have, first of all, we're going to have a lot of surface tension here. We get this kind of like the water kind of sticks to the surface of these objects, right? And again, water do be real good at refracting that light and kind of catching things to reflect. And because it's a small enough area, you get like this whole arc that is reflecting everything in the environment at those angles. So first of all, we're going to have a good potential to kind of reflect stuff in a very concentrated band. We also get like bubbles and stuff and churning water that's going to stick to that and kind of like create this kind of net of bubbles, right? Now, how it would flow around this shape would be interesting because it kind of create these eddy currents here, right? As the water is pushing out, it suddenly is like getting compressed in here and then opening up out here. And this wall kind of creates this suction which pulls in and this flows out, and you get these kind of swirling kind of eddies, right? So that's kind of something I want to show. And then you get these waves that kind of interact with each other too, right? And this is pretty heavy flowing water, right? So we're going to get kind of these waves and ripples happening. It's churning. Yeah, water is like such a cool subject to paint, but boy, it is like complex. Um, but when you can get it to work, it's actually amazing. So it also gets really dark really fast, right? You do get kind of like the light going down, and it can penetrate into the water, but it's like getting scattered all the time really quickly, so it does quite quickly fall off. All right, so where am I? Like if it's deep enough, it's gonna kind of absorb like all that light. Oh, I think it's the overlay that's, yeah, okay, it's the overlay that's kind of affecting that. All right. So we'll have to combat that a bit. This is going to be interesting. So this is going to work nice inside of my painting program, but when I export this as a flat PNG with like transparency, it no longer has like special layer effects like glow layers and stuff like that, where it's going to say, hey, this yellow pixel is on top of that orange or that brown, so I'm going to make it convert to orange. When it's just a PNG, it doesn't have any of that kind of like special, layer effect knowledge. It's just this is the pixel color and opacity. And then when a layer is slapped underneath that, such as the base that you're actually equipped, it's not going to know to like glow that brown into an orange using that yellow. It's just going to be like, here's the yellow laid on top of that. So I really do need to be careful about kind of what things look like when I have, no base underneath, right? Like what is the interaction of the trap or the base underneath this? I gotta like the rainbow glow here, stuff like that. I need to account for what happens when that becomes a flattened layer. There's no special effect on it. So I might need to compensate a bit for that and just make sure that that works without any kind of like special layers happening. But okay, so this needs to get darker. My overlay tweaks is working against me a little bit here. So what do I do here? I think I can just unmask that, or rather mask that off, right? And then I can just like paint in the actual sunlight reflection. So what I'm doing is I'm starting with painting the inside of the water. I want to start by painting it as if the surface doesn't actually exist. I'm painting the bed of the river. So let me lock this group again. And I'm going to go to, where are you? This. Okay, so I'm going to hide that reflection. That. Kind of need to like work through my layers, and here we go. Okay, so I'm going to start with this, and I'm going to paint the bottom of this stream effectively. Paint it as if it's like there's no water there. Oh man, yeah, good call. Like, so when it comes to kind of like a surfboard base, and I really need to figure out where we can do this. Yeah, we got like so many traps that would work so great on that. Trap skins. Just to list a few in the chat. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So this is kind of the riverbed here. And this can be a bit more muddy as we get up to, oh my god. So this is like part of the issue with overlay effects, is like I'm trying to paint one thing and all of this is kind of interfering with what's happening. And it is a little bit annoying. So let's unlock this again. And this is what I was talking about earlier on in the stream, where it's like I don't tend to like working on a painting that has this kind of higher up, this layer affects everything below it trick. It's such a powerful thing when you're near the end of a piece to kind of improve it, but like, boy, it's a bit difficult to work with. All right, so we're also gonna have to experiment with different bases and see how bad this becomes. All right, also I think instead of like deep blue we should go deep brown. Again, the overlay is messing with it here. Okay, so let's go a bit more brown here. Oh my gosh. There's just, everything is messing with it. Okay, I can turn that off as well. Like I'm just trying to paint this color right here, and it won't work because of what? something else in the overlay. Yeah. I guess if I turn off the overlay, it might give me a little bit, a modicum of control. Perhaps. Okay, we got a muddy shore, muddy riverbank, and we're going to go real shallow and deep and dark down here. Okay. All right, so we're kind of painting the underside of this riverbed. Okay, so now we can build up kind of like, maybe we can kind of catch a glimpse of some stuff under the water here. If it's kind of like shallow enough at the edges. Right, because I don't think it's like crazy, crazy deep. But it is probably got like a lot of soot and mud kicked up into it. So again, we're not going to have crisp, defined edges anywhere in there. Okay, and then we're going to build up our surface. So we can start here. And basically I like to start at the outer edges where our kind of like water surface is kind of like grabbing things, and you have that like surface tension, right? We don't need to start with kind of the correct color or anything. We're just kind of building up. Okay, so maybe it's like right along this edge, and we can just pick and choose what the light might be hitting. And I'm going to go warmer with the color here because we are using sunlight on it. Okay. I'll have some of that streaming off. Probably closer to white, honestly. But I'm effectively painting kind of these bubbles. All right. Now we do have like moving water, and so we're going to have waves within it. And so what we want to do is actually paint the environment reflecting off of this surface. Honestly, that's kind of like the next step maybe. So what I could do is start by throwing a kind of layer over top. Maybe we'll get some of the kind of details of this reflected in it. But because it's not still water, it's not like a mirror. It's actually going to be kind of like this part is pitching up, and it's going to get an angle off to the side, and that part's there, and etc., etc. But starting here is probably okay. So then if I mask that, and we kind of like pick and choose, like this can be one wave kind of going like this. This can be another wave going like that, like that. and then kind of stack and overlap them. And again, this is going to be generating kind of this eddy here. And what you can do is where they overlap is you kind of invert them onto each other, right? Okay. All right. And so I'm going to take that and I'm going to knock it back quite a bit. And then let's see, we're going to kind of pick parts of that would be kind of more facing towards our light source. And maybe I'll bring that up just a bit more. And just try and kind of like show the surface of the water, kind of arcing. This is kind of one of those challenging things where it looks really kind of messy and bad until you start to pull it all together. Fingers crossed. It's not a guarantee. And also the water is going to have like smooth transitions between these arcs, so we're going to have a lot of like soft edges in the valleys of it, but then the actual kind of, if they're aggressive enough waves, maybe the peaks of those are a little sharper. Hopefully any of this is making any sense to anybody, but we'll see. Right, and we're going to knock a lot of this back quite a bit. Okay, so then I'm actually going to come in here, and now I'm going to further erase where parts of the waves are like turned away from our light source, and I'm going to let us peer down into this water, right? We're going to be able to look down through the surface to the rocks and the debris below, the base, all kinds of things that kind of aren't being obstructed by the reflecting surface. It's easier to do, I would say, with like a smoother water. It's pretty tough to paint this kind of realistically. And in fact, I would have to do things like refracting the base, you know, bending the light and silly details that do not matter at all. So we're not going to bother. But still my brain wants to kind of note those details. Okay. All right. So like when it comes to mirror reflections like water, the angle of the viewer is actually really important, right? Like if you think about it, you know, because it's a reflection, it's reflecting what you are seeing, where your eyes are positioned in the light that, you know, is bouncing off in a direction from the surface. So that matters. Whereas like a Lambertian reflection, like a matte surface that isn't a reflective surface, it's like scattering light in all directions randomly. That doesn't matter nearly as much, like what angle you're seeing that from, right? Like these craggly, crunchy rocks, for example, they're still going to be lit the same way, no matter kind of what angle you're viewing it from, right? Like that part of the surface is this bright. But if it's shiny and chrome or a polished metal surface, it does depend on what angle you're looking at it. Like if it was a mirror standing there, like if you stood at a certain angle, you'd just be seeing the dark recess of this cavernous wall back there instead of, even though photons are hitting it, it's in the direct sunlight. Because it's like reflecting, you're not getting that reflected into your eyes because of the angle. So the water surface is kind of doing a bit of that, depending on what angle I am compared to the wave. If it's kind of like angled towards me, I could potentially see a reflection of myself in it if I have enough light bouncing off me, right? It's unlikely with water because generally it's pretty like low and not angled at 90 degrees. But that's kind of the idea. Like if you stood over a pond and looked down and it's still enough in the right conditions, you see yourself reflected. Um, so all that to say is I need to kind of like treat these angles on the waves as reflecting the scene. So like this glowing archway, I think will be an important thing to kind of catch in the waves. To kind of like help me understand like, oh, these waves are kind of arced up to kind of bounce the light from that doorway. So like even out to the side, if it's arced enough, it's going to be able to kind of like catch the light from that and reflect it at me. Whereas maybe over here, I'm going to get some of the green grass reflecting onto the wave. And like the angle matters, like how steep the angle is. That can actually be, the steeper the angle, the more it's likely to reflect, right? So when you're kind of looking directly at it, it's going to be kind of bad at reflecting, depending on what it is, of course, but I forget what that's called, but there is a term for that angle of incidence, kind of like increasing in reflectivity, but it can matter what the surface materials are, all kinds of things. I'm a bit of a photon nerd, but I can't actually tell you good facts. All right. So I think I have still too much strength in those waves. And I'm going to bring this down a bit more. Now that I've kind of established some things, I'm going to pull it back. Okay, we are very, very close to 1 o'clock. So I don't think I like it being so yellow, honestly, and those wave crests are just too strong. So I'm going to really pull that back now. Like we'll maybe get a few blips of it being that intense. Because again, it do like to reflect light sources, but and it would be kind of elongated along the crest, right? Because of how it's kind of bending. And the more kind of a bend it has, the tighter that reflection is, that specular highlight. Yeah, again, this is one of those details where I could just kind of spend way too much time just trying to get perfect and never get there. But hopefully that feels watery. I think I'll get like some of the rocks color kind of reflecting right at the peaks of these. Just the most extreme angle maybe. And then also something that can be good is having kind of deeper darker kind of moments where there's like almost like a magnifying effect of the floor of the river. I don't know. It's okay. It looks like early internet water or early like video game water. I'm not thrilled with it, honestly. I think I'm going to just do a quick little something like oh, all right, we're at 1 o'clock, but I'm gonna mess with this for a couple minutes more probably. So I'm not quite happy with it yet. All right, so I'm gonna do a little gentle brush and just kind of do that to just kind of chill it out a bit, right? Make it feel a little more. Don't pay too much attention to this water. It's water. It's whatever. It's murky. It's kind of got a lot of light scattering around inside of it. That kind of pulls it together in the right ways, hopefully. All right, we got to get some initials right. CBS, Canadian Broadcasting. Let's get that in there. You right. All right. Oh, we can go above everything. Gotta turn our overlay back on. Oh yeah, how does the overlay mess with things? Oh, it's fine. It's fine. Forgot about the overlay. Okay, you know what? I don't hate it. I think that little glow at the end does make it feel a bit more kind of like it goes into nice happy water instead of murky deep ocean. Mm. Jacob's late on his homework. That's my life. All right. Let's see. Okay, so we gotta unlock this folder, and we're gonna. All right. CPS was here. What is this? Oh, the sketch. How did the sketch get turned on? How long have you been on? Okay. Well, hopefully that didn't mess too much with my kind of perspective on things. I think I must have just turned that on recently. It's fine. Okay. Let's see. Again, we need to be careful about lost and found edges back in here, right? Suddenly this might be like extremely demanding of one's attention. So I'll try to kind of make it more subtle. That's pretty strong. Gonna have to knock that back a bit. Hopefully it's still kind of like there. That's maybe the worst spot to hide that. CBS and neon lights. Yeah, exactly. Gow. We could do gow. I feel like if someone didn't know better and they spotted these, they'd be like, oh, it looks like the artist Gao and CBS worked on this piece together and they signed their name on it. Never really actually thought about it like coming across as an artist kind of like, you know, claiming their work. Because I mean that's what I would do on my own personal artwork, and a lot of artists do is they'll like sign it, which natural. So I'm just like, oh yeah, I guess this could look like that to some people. Well, we know what's up. Also, it's Gao sideways, in case that wasn't obvious. But I also don't want it to be obvious. So there. Easter eggs. I think it could be all right that these feel like they're, you know, like someone came in and carved in these walls. You know, so I kind of want more to kind of like fill it in and make it feel like that's what's supposed to be going on. Also, that looked like a butt, so I'm going to change that a bit. Yeah, I mean, with these ruins, surely there would be, you know, people just going around carving things in them. Exactly. Yeah, it's the secret stream lore. There honestly there is a lot of that. If you have been around for a lot of them, there is just kind of like this is Jacob headcanon for what's actually going on here. So if you were here, you know the kind of the stuff that doesn't make it into the game. Yeah. No, that's why I do this. Is like I want you all to be rooting things on and influencing where things go, right? It's a good thing. This is how we end up with like creations that I would not have made had it not been for egging me on. So it's intentionally, I want you to leave your mark. And honestly, like I guess that the signature concept is not a lie, right? Like a lot of the people that get their kind of name tagged in pieces were actually a part of creating it. So I think it's appropriate. May not have had an absolutely direct hand in the design necessarily, and like that was my idea specifically, but like you were a part of it, so take some credit, in my opinion. It's a community creation. All right. Let me get one more. One more initial. Need more. TRH. TRH, you can be hidden as the secret in the waterfall. Yeah, this was a pretty much completed piece to begin with, so, you know, that is what it is. All right, how can I hide you in here? Done. Okay, yeah, because I want to paint it inside of the water, and that's tricky. That's very tricky. Okay, I think I need to go layers below. Oh, it's complex. Yeah, okay, that's not actually gonna be able to paint underneath, huh? Okay. This is tricky. Alright, then we gotta go over the whole thing, I think. Gets a little lost, but it's kind of the purpose, honestly. Cool. Okay. So just to balance some of that, I am going to just add a little bit of intentional carvings on these stones. Where clearly an artisan was just having some fun. And what with the whole forgotten power type, I feel like that's actually pretty appropriate. some of that out. Oh, wait, that was the S. No, it was not. It's okay, I'm taking a little bit of a later lunch. All right. Okay, so there's a feeling of carvings back there. It's no longer really distracting because it's kind of a little hint of it everywhere. And I think that's cool. That works for me. I should probably get some of that up in here, just so that it looks like it's kind of everywhere. Okay, as I've stated before, I could work on this for a whole week and still feel like there's details that I am not done with. So I'm gonna call it here. I'm pretty happy with where we got to. There's definitely things that I'm like, it's not really done, but it's fine. Where it was initially was honestly fine enough to be fair. Like it really doesn't need all this super focused detail or anything, but I like it. It's fun. And I just wanted something more interesting to work on than polishing, a pretty much complete trap skin that you saw me paint the entire thing. And I mean, maybe we'd end up doing a lot to it, to be fair. But at least this one was like a new piece that was a little more exciting. Okay, great. So I'm pretty happy with where this got to. I hope you are as well. So I'm going to give this a save, and I will export that once I've consumed more human fuel. Yeah. I think that'll be that for today. Yeah. All right. Sorry it wasn't, all brand new, kind of like watch Jacob start something from the beginning and help influence it. It was an unplanned stream, to be fair, so uh, and I didn't really have anything that I could be like, all right, let's start from something from scratch, or like do a lot more kind of, quick build up rendering that's more interesting than kind of poking at little details. But this is good too every once in a while, I think. But yeah, all right. Well, thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate your company, and I hope you enjoyed. I shall see you, I guess, in 2 weeks now at this point. Hopefully, Dave will be feeling well enough to stream next week. But until I see you next time, happy hunting, everyone. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I shall catch you later. Bye for now. All right. Have a good weekend. All right. Thanks again for tuning in. Oh, Larry Link. If you already left, I'm sorry. I do have Larry Link for you, though. Let me grab that. Sorry, bit of a chaotic day. Let's see if it'll let me post this. Boom. Larry Link. Okay. Now I can sign out. I don't have the video to review because I did not start the time lapse. My bad on that. But yeah. Floating tube base soon. Actually, it's a good idea. I want to find a way to do some kind of flotation surfing something. Maybe we'll have an event that could work for that. But yeah. Okay. Bye for now. Bye.